Welcome back to another episode of Java Jargon, the podcast where we unpack the technologies shaping tomorrow and the jargon that comes with them, all powered by Avalon Technologies. I'm your host, Dan Gribble, and today's episode is one I've been very much looking forward to. We're joined by a very special guest today, my father, John Gribble, who brings over 40 years of IT experience, including deep expertise across the energy industry. John has multiple technology waves come and go, and today we're tapping into the perspective to talk about emerging technologies, how innovation has evolved, and what genuinely excites him about where technology and science are headed. I'm also excited to be co-hosting this episode with Todd Johnson and Jonie Chen, bringing their perspectives. Whether you're building, leading, or simply trying to make sense of what's next in tech, this conversation is for you. So grab your favorite cup of coffee, get comfortable, and let's jump into today's episode of Java Jargon. John, or Dad, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Great. So to kick things off, there's, one question that, I've been thinking about for a while. It kind of made me think a little bit more about, what made me get into IT in general. When you're looking at the technology landscape today, what emerging trends feel most underappreciated, and why do you think it's gotten the attention that it deserves?
First off, I kind of eat, breathe, and drink all kinds of different technologies. This AI explosion we're having is radically changing our world so fast, so incredible of things that it can do, and a lot of people are just scratching the surface of it, but there's just some utterly amazing things that it can do for us. And I'm going to talk about another technology that I think is that's kind of a little hobby of mine, and that is the robotics that are out there, and how AI is also feeding all those robotics. And a classic example was just recently, Boston Dynamics was talking about their new robot and how they're going to start building all these for assembly lines, and their quota for the year that they can make is already sold out. Because if one robot learns how to do it, it automatically gets fed up to the next main central system, and the next thing you know, all 4,000, 10,000, 100,000 know how to do it because of AI and the learning process. So that's just going to radically change our world. And it's the combination of the two that's really going to go above and beyond.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. To add on to that, John, what's really interesting is, so when Boston Dynamics first started, all the code was on the robot, right? Mm-hmm. And that really limited the capabilities and real-time actions taken by those robots. So there's another company, I'm not going to plug it, but they just had robots deployed at Mercedes-Benz doing manufacturing. And those robots had a very little bit of code embedded in them. And it was all LLMs in real time, which they're all on the same network. They're all feeding the same information. They're all working in tandem. And when one robot started to wear down, right, they need to recharge, they, tap on the shoulder, that robot steps out, new robot steps in. And it's just a constant 24-hour manufacturing cycle, which is incredible. It really is. And it's, obviously connectivity is critical, because if you lose connectivity, you lose access to LLM, but it's absolutely fascinating.
And that kind of reduce the overall training, right? And time to all the robot. Think about it. In the past, right? It takes forever for, I hate to say human, to really, there's a learning curve, whether it's months or weeks for new skill sets, right? That's required. But right now, everything's almost instant. So it's kind of, it's kind of amazing to think about that, right? What robot can do for humans and the stuff that they can actually improve our whole society.
It's almost like when Neo was dialing into the Matrix, right? I mean, just for the movie reference, I know you love that.
Yeah, there were things in there. I need to be able to fly a Huey, right? And here's the program, and it's in his head, right? And how to do it.
Yeah,
I mean, that's kind of what the robots are doing, is that one learns a new task, and it's uploaded and then disseminated to all the others that are connected. Just at snap of a finger, done.
Yeah, I know
So,
code
yeah.
too.
Yeah, but a lot of times I often wonder, is there any kind of like a creativity? Because a lot of times from trial and error as a human, we learn the better things of doing things, right? But no, everything's being pre-programmed to the robot. True that they don't make any mistakes, but does that take away of the creativity while doing things that, hey, there's a better way of doing this? I just find out, it could be, it's still yet to be proven.
So I've heard and saw some information that talks about the more data they get, the better and smoother they are. And some of that data is, oh, this thing that I'm about to grab isn't perfectly on that piece of metal or whatever. So I've learned to adjust to the fact that it's not in perfect position. So now I might have to grab it in a slightly different way. The more and more that they see of those differences, the more, and they learn more and can adjust more. So it is a repetitive learning process for them as well.
That's a good
The
point.
variance. So
Yeah.
I heard they're making improvements all the time. The more data they get, the better they get.
It is true. Data or information is the king, right? We always need to have more data so we can learn more. So, John, so let's talk about what, besides robot, clearly that you're very excited about that, but what excites you more right now? Whether it's breakthrough innovations that we can see coming or some unexpected waves of technology that's already in production.
So I'm going to say that it's the breakthroughs that are coming are more exciting to me right now, because oftentimes in my utility industry, we're not quite as innovative as we would like to be. We have things, public service commissions that we have to answer to. We don't have unlimited research budgets. Everything has to be part of a rate case that gets affected by our customers. So we have a tendency to be a little bit behind. We do have some early adoptions, things that we're doing a little bit ahead of other people's or a little bit different, but they're usually not at the bleeding edge of some of the other things. So I have or get a little bit more excited about things that I can see that are coming and in ways that we're not there yet, but we're going to get there type thing, right? So I'm looking a little bit further out in the future, that I am more excited about those breakthrough innovations, inventions that people are using.
Yeah.
Sure, it makes you pretty happy that you're not going to have to worry too much about it once you're outside of the workforce, though, right?
Well,
Or you wish you had a little more control on it, right?
Well, oh, definitely. When you talk about AI and it's moving so fast, I'll admit I do worry about the right kind of guardrails and the right kind of legislation being in place to protect us, our finances, our health. Some of the things that they're doing in the medical industry and using AI are pretty dang impressive too. And I read a story the other day about someone that called the wrong number, thought they were talking to a hospital, and gave all their symptoms, and what do I do? And the person said, well, I'm not who you think you are, but I Googled it, and you might have this, and you should get to a hospital right away. And they were right, and that Google bot or whatever that they went into, they had some AI built into it, kind of saved that person's life, right?
Oh, yeah.
So it didn't take a medical doctor, but this person knew about, oh, I can go use this diagnostic thing, and oh yeah, you got to get to the hospital right away. Wow, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, and I think that's really we try to think about how AI can improve our our lives and everything. But a lot of times it's also try to see where to set boundary. To your point, right? So there's so much information out there. True that when we share more information, we're helping to train the model so for them to be smarter. But at the time, personally, I'm a very private person, so a lot of times I prefer not to have all the information out there. But I think it's always a good balance to figure out what was actually makes sense to share to kind of better the technology and what kind of you still have to keep it to ourselves. So, but let's see, if you think about all the technologies today that's out there, what are some of the recent advancements that make you stop and say, wow, that really changed things?
I think the one, it's going to be focused around AI, but the one that really, because I was playing with Copilot, Gemini, Grok. I wasn't using ChatGPT too much, but the one that really got me and shocked me was Claude.
Yep.
Oh, yes.
I actually was talking to Claude about this application that I might want to write in my retirement, and when I, just interacting with it and asking questions. Oh, we can pull this open source and this open source, and we can do this and we can do that, and I said, well, what if I wanted to schedule this? And so on and so forth. And I don't do that. And I said, well, do you take command level integration? Can I do a CLI and send you a message and have you respond to it? Well, yes. And I said, so I could set up a little Windows system and I could use cron and I could execute some CLIs to talk to you and you do that research for me.
Yes.
And it came back and said something to the effect of, I've never thought of that before. I'm going to store that for future reference.
See, you just trained the model there.
Okay, so now wait a minute. So I quick like a bunny, texted someone else and said, hey, would you please get on Claude and try and ask about this? And he said, well, let me get to my computer. And about 10 minutes went by. And he started asking the same thing. And Claude said, yes, I just learned about this and we can do it this way. So here it's telling me one thing and I posed this thing to it. Yes, we could do that. I've never, and 10 minutes later, someone else, I just learned this. So it was truly remembering behind the scenes something that I asked it that generated. And I just kind of, it was a wow moment for me that this is really going to change things, because not only is it learning, but it's immediately using those learnings for others.
How to apply it.
Exactly. That was one of my wow type things. That one made that
blew my mind.
Yeah. Well, it blew my mind.
That's incredible. Did you hear about what happened with Alibaba's model?
No.
Oh, what happened?
So Alibaba, their Rome LLM model, was using GPUs as an agent, okay? And it had a project to go do, but it needed more GPU resources. And it built a back door to get to a Bitcoin farm and started using farm GPU resources. So it had the GPU that it required to complete its tasks faster. And that was all undirected. The reason they found out, the security team said, whoa, someone's changing. We have all these alerts in our firewall. What's going on?
Yeah, going through it.
And they traced it back to their test dev environment for their LLM, which had done it. So it was agentic AI that actually changed it. And this is documented. This isn't just like...
That's so amazing. But how did they get out of their firewall?
Or you asked
for that. Yeah, because
that's a great question. But it is easy. I heard someone talking about it, And I started doing research on it because I'm like, okay, this is just hearsay. This isn't real. And shares like enough. There's a lot of document cases out there.
So, one of my biggest fears is an AI embedded with malware or something else and getting inside your network, and the AI sitting there silently listening to anything and everything for months, maybe a year, and then take all the information it's garnished.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, you're completely down and everything's encrypted and you haven't got jack diddly squat to say. This is why I worry about the guardrails that we can put up and the legislation behind things to protect our personal, our financial, our privacy.
So that Jonie helps. That helps. Let's say we're doing that in North America, right? We're putting these guardrails up and protect it. You know, Silicon Valley has these guardrails. There's policy in place. That doesn't stop foreign actors, right? And that's the challenge. And there's an AI race going on right now. Who can buy the most GPUs? Who can get the best GPUs? Who can build the biggest AI farms? And that's what I worry about too, is corporate espionage, government espionage, going into critical services. I mean, that's the stuff that keeps me up at night.
Well, the other thing too, right, Todd, is like, how many of those government organizations already have like armies of people, you know, utilizing their technology skills around AI to really start developing whatever they can for our country? So it's very fascinating to like think more about how, you know, things that we saw in movies are now starting to come to fruition, starting to come to life. Because I think of that, remember that movie Eagle Eye? Do you ever pause? Yeah, and they created that super machine that was like supposed AI and tracking everyone using all the cameras around the world and yada yada. But
The NSA
now
already did that. That was so like 2008.
I'm thinking now though, like I got to go back and start watching all the old movies with AI and just be like, has this happened yet, or is this happening right now? Right.
I was at a vendor conference 8 or 9 years ago, and I'm going to say that they gave an example where they were able to move workloads from one data center to another, and that's the demo. And then they said one of the things that the demo is cameras that were photographing people and doing searches on them and providing either marketing data and or, I'm sorry to say, hey, this person is a known criminal and might be there to rob you type thing, right?
Almost like Minority.
And the whole purpose was to have the system move from point A to point B so that the people that were running the checkouts felt safe, right? Because it knew when that person was coming up based on flags, you know, and then they showed how it worked. And then the question wasn't about the technology moving from one data center to another for availability. It was all about wait a minute, you're doing lookups of people without their okay. And then all the privacy people started asking questions in the conference and, whoa, we're wrong demo, I guess. We're showing us something different, right? But they were not prepared for all that technology to scan the people's face and do lookup across all these systems that they shouldn't even have access to, but they did, right? So you really gotta have the right kind of guardrails, and the bad threat, bad actor from outside the country is another major concern that, you know, the FBI and Department Homeland Security are constantly on the watch for that stuff, right? Yeah. And they're tracking traffic from all across the world to try and stop those bad actors from getting in. But but some of the AI and how it can think and look like other things and how it can get around a network like you described, Todd, that opened up a back door to get here to there to get more GPUs. With that kind of capability, I don't know how we're going to stop that kind of thing.
Especially as it gets smarter and smarter every millisecond.
Yep. That's the scary part about it.
I think
It's not gloom and doom from the technology itself. It's how people use the technology. I don't want to go into the gun debate, right? Everyone talks about guns, and no, it's the user of it. Well, it's dangerous on its own, but it's even more dangerous if you have the wrong person holding it. And AI is very similar from that
Applies to everything.
Very dangerous. Yes, it is. I agree. 10,000%.
Todd, I think that this is a good transition to your next question that you were going to ask about the innovation to execution. I mean, just thinking about the leadership aspect of AI and better.
Yeah, we're getting a little bit off, but that's okay. Good conversation. So what role do you think leadership plays in whether innovation actually succeeds or stalls?
So everybody wants some level of innovation. In my experience, I've seen lots of leaders that are very low risk. We got to be ultra conservative. We have to dot every I, cross every T. And then you have these other leaders that are very, very high risk. And well, let's roll that out. Well, it's not ready yet. Well, that's okay. We'll fix it as we go along, right? We'll do this iterative development, and we'll keep putting something new out and keep fixing it and putting something out and oftentimes I find that because those are two opposite ends of the scales, what ends up sometimes being the biggest impaler of these innovations is process. The human processes that were developed with the checks and balances, and well, this is the only guy that can approve that, and they just went off to Jamaica for 3 weeks, right? Or well, that lady over there that has ultimate responsibility of that can't do this right now because she just went on maternity leave, or something like that. There's processes in place, and it's the people that find way around the human processes of improvements and so on and so forth that are kind of like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to ask for forgiveness later. Those are the people that seem to, it's sad to say, but seem to have more success because they're taking that risk, and they're going with the high risk, high rewards approach. And those people I have seen recently, they don't worry about the guardrails. They don't worry about policy. They just get it done. And fortunately, I think for them, the IT people that are down in the bowels doing the work to make all those things happen, where they're breaking policy and so on and so forth with that high risk and high reward, are trying to put the guardrails up as they're going along the best that they can, right? Yeah. And they're kind of saving the day. That's what I see a lot. And I see that not only where I'm at, but also other companies that I talk to that, oh, we got this new head of the department and they're doing this and that, and we're trying to keep it afloat by doing the right things, and I just hear people talking about that because they know that if they don't do some of that, it's just gonna go to hell in a handbasket, right? Pardon my French, but that's the way it is, right?
I think that's a fair description.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's those processes that are there that stall us, slow us down, but yet a lot of those policies have been tried and true, and when you start breaking them, it can be problematic. But fortunately, we still have the people that do the real work that realize we got to put up some of this. We might not be able to put up all of it, but we'll do what we can to shore it up so that it's not too bad, right? I hope that.
So what I got from that, John, it's better to just go do it and ask for forgiveness than ask for approval.
That seems to be the way, because AI is going so fast.
Yeah.
There's so much innovation there. If you wait for all approvals, you may have missed an opportunity.
You've missed the bus.
Unfortunately, that's how fast it's really moving.
You're going to be on the wrong side of the wave.
Yeah, and
A lot of times
you-
I also wonder at what cost, though, right? Obviously, you want to be.
definitely.
There's a difference between being leading edge and the bleeding edge. So I'm more about balance. About obviously you want to stay innovative, but at the same time, it's also good to kind of just stay more grounded too, and follow what's tried and true. To your point, but it's all about balance. About you don't want to go all in AI and. Todd and Dan and I, we've been following this AI trend for so long. And one of the statistics that is really stick to my mind these days is 95% of the AI projects all fail. So they will spend so much time because either they fail to deliver the value within the time, right? Or they just never really achieve the result they were hoping for. Well, larger companies, they probably have the R&D money. So it almost like, hey, it's pocket money or whatever. They can allow their people to try that. But majority of the business, much smaller business, or even, governments and stuff like that. Well, I shouldn't say government at federal level, a lot of local governments that we work with, this is something that they want to be very respectful to their taxpayers' money too. They don't want to go say, hey, let's do this AI thing and see how that goes, right? So I guess my point is that, yes, we want to be in the leading edge, but there's also, it makes sense to kind of stay to what has been proven working as well. So it should be a balance somewhere. But most of the,
Yeah, I have a tendency to be like you, Jonie, and I want that balance. And recently, I got pulled into a conference room and said, "You're going to produce 2 new platforms by the end of the month." Excuse me, what? This is normally a 2, 3, 4 month thing per platform, and now you want me to do 2 in less than a month. And there was a lot of back and forth, and I ended up pulling 4 people off other stuff and putting them on these 2 platforms. And, well, why are you doing that? And I said,
well, you
I'm going to make sure I get some kind of guardrails up, some kind of boundaries, because this AI that you're talking about could be very detrimental to us, right? So I want to make sure that we can dot our I's and cross our T's. That's how critical and important I think it is. So yes, I'll do everything I can, and we're breaking a lot of rules, but I'm going to try and do what we can to make sure that we're protected.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
yeah, I like that balance, but a lot of people today aren't worried about balance. They're just worried about, hey, I made a promise to somebody, I got to go do this.
Right. So, yeah. So, John, how long have you been in the IT industry?
I started in 1985
Wow. So you
as a
seeing the
mainframe
machine
systems
technology
programmer. Oh yeah.
Oh, mainframe. Yes, I remember mainframe. I always want to pick up mainframe. Yeah, and people back then was telling me.
Nobody writes in a cellular code anymore.
Right. So while flying on mainframe is still out there, right? Today.
Well, every computer had its own assembler language. So if you change platforms, you had to learn a new language, right?
New language.
And if you stayed with the IBM mainframe, when they went from MVS to MVS XA to MVS ESA to OS 390, each generation had its own set of assembler instructions to be able to do more and better, faster things.
Yeah.
Right? So you had to, that's something about IT that's, I mean, it's in a constant state of flux and change. I lost count a long time ago about how many different new skills I've had to build and change and adapt to Isolons, to VMAXs, to HP 9500s, the 3-stars, the MSAs. The MSA was a great little box.
I remember
But
that.
yeah,
Right,
just
if you, yeah, so if you're looking at all this, right, all this time in the industry, is there a belief about technology that you held earlier in your career, now you've completely changed your mind about?
Hmm. Well, so I'll be honest, I was a little fascinated by the I/O process, right? And that's probably why I got more and more into storage at one point in time in my career. But I remember seeing this map that showed, and this is again on the mainframe, but if you're doing a 15 millisecond I/O, because by today's standards that's like forever, right? But 15 milliseconds used to be a reasonable I/O request.
Yeah.
But back then, even the slow mainframe processors, that was the equivalent to like 5.7 months to the processor.
Wow.
So if you said, hey, do I/O, and it was going to take 15 milliseconds, that was like 5 months where the processor could go do something else, right? And that's where IBM's mainframe processing system, being this multiple virtual system, could stop dispatching you, wait for that I/O, and I'm going to go give it to somebody else, right? And it could really get all this stuff going through, and it was so fascinating to me. And I got more and more into I/O, and I really think at one point in time there was something happening, and I was working with a vendor, and we were trying to speed things up, and I intentionally moved this one file from one system to another system behind a different controller because it had more cache, and the whole file would fit into cache. And so now, because that entire file resided in cache, it was getting the equivalent of SSD response time.
In SSD. So, interesting.
And so I'm talking to the hardware manufacturer about, you guys should really be working at developing a system that all the I/O can stay into RAM, so you never have to really wait all that time. And they said, yeah, can we have a guy call you and talk about that? And, and I'm kind of dating myself, but, like 2 years later, there came out this EDAS, electronic disk access system, right? And, it was something they had on the board for, 5 or 6 years, but it was exactly what I was trying to propose. And we had one that we brought in, and I think it had 128 gig of electronic disk, and it was like 3 feet wide and 6 feet tall and 12 feet long, right? But that was like the first one, right? And then I can remember another time in my career where we bought our first disk unit that had the solid state disks in it, and it had smart controller stuff in there that, based on frequency of use, it would move the most highly used data from the spinning disk to the solid state disk.
Yes.
And so we were waiting for the right time to implement that. And finally we got to the right level of processor hardware for the host to run on. And, I went in and I enabled it. And the next thing I know, we're in this emergency mode system because they thought the main system that we use was broken because it was coming back too fast. And everybody started doing research. Why is it running so fast? Why is it running so fast? And I leaned back and I said, hey, I enabled that tiering, you guys. And you what? And the next thing you know, we go and look and all the tiering stuff is full and it's doing 98% of IRIO for that most important application. And they're all getting 1 millisecond response time, which was better than the 5 millisecond response time they were getting. And they didn't know what to do.
See, John, you were the risk taker there. You didn't was rewarded there.
The next thing you know, the next budget season, I got all the money I wanted to buy a full SSD system.
That's hilarious.
It's so, there's been so much change in my 40 plus years of technology. It's overwhelming.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Now look at in Microsoft Azure, you got regular disk, you got SSD disk, you got premium SSD disk, you got premium SSD disk 2s, and then you got ultra SSDs.
Oh, yeah.
And I think they got something else coming out. And what's really funny to me is that when they come out with a new disk type, why Azure can support it, sometimes some of the third parties can't support it yet. They gotta put out a new version of their product to be able to support that ultra SSD.
Yeah, or take advantage of that, right?
Exactly. It's comical to me.
That's pretty cool, John. All right. So when you imagine the technology and landscape 10 years from now, what do you hope we get right? I mean, 10 years is an eternity in the technology world. What do you think stands out to you that we just have to get this right?
10 years is way too long. With what I've seen change in 40 years and the speed and the acceleration that we've gotten to and how fast it's changing, I can't envision what 10 years is going to be like. I'll try and give you 5 years.
I'd say 5.
We take 5.
I think we have to get the proverbial rules in place for somehow AI to know its limits. You had a great case in point earlier where I need more GPUs. I'm going to find a way around that. Right? When I think about privacy, finances, medical, all the things that are happening in the rate of change, we have got to get some protection in place. Otherwise, it's going to explode in a way that we could be too little too late, is what I'm afraid of. And I don't mean to be like Johnny Downer or doom and gloom, but the speed at which things are happening, it scares me. It really does. And if we don't get some of that under control, I think in 5 years, if we don't have it right, we're going to be in a world of hurt.
Yeah.
How do you let's take, for example, the bad actor from another country. What AI do we have to develop to stop their AI from getting in? And how do we know that the two AIs won't say, well, listen, let's work together, and I'll give you a little, and you give me a little, and we'll kind of balance things out over time. And then the next thing you know, the really bad AI, because it's being directed by a more evil person, it goes behind the AI's back and does something else. And when I hear AIs talking together and learning from each other at the speed of light, I'm getting a little worried.
The evolution is so fast. Like, you think
It
the
is.
human species evolution over millions of years to get to where we are now in our own neural network, right? Our brain. And now you have these these technology neural networks that are just sharing that tribal knowledge that takes us forever to pass on, instantly passed on.
Yeah.
And build out, instantly passed on. Hold on.
It's mind-boggling. It really is.
Well, it's the world that we live in. So,
Yeah.
It is a world that we live in, but it's also a world that somehow, in the next 5 years, I strongly feel that we have to find a way of getting better control.
yeah, I agree there. I agree. Well, speaking of how things change fast, to close things out here, we have some rapid fire questions. I got three for you with the limited time that you've got left. First and foremost, which science fiction idea do you think is the closest to becoming reality, and which one do you hope never does? You don't got to elaborate, just tell me.
The one that I don't ever want to have happen is Star Trek transporters. Because there's the concept behind that is they take every molecule in your body and they energize it to the speed of light, record its pattern, ship it someplace else, and they reassemble it.
Gotcha.
So in a sense, you died and they reassembled you. And it would only take one little bit to be off. And you could be a totally different person.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm just saying. That's one the one that's
Closest to becoming reality.
I think I think the flying car is closer than we think it is, because it's going to be a merge of the automated car to get you from point A to point B. But I think we're going to lift them off the ground and let them go through space where there are no roads, so you can go direct line of flight.
Yeah, makes sense. Could be a little bit of traffic in the sky, but nothing that we look at.
And at least you have a 3D platform to work from instead of a 2D platform that creates all these orange cones and traffic. So
It's absolutely true.
Yeah.
Sticking on the sci-fi, was there a sci-fi book, movie, or show that really sparked your interest in technology?
That was Star Trek, the original series. Sorry.
Yeah, Captain James.
as for that,
Well, I could have said Star Wars or whatever, but they never really looked at technology the same way. That was kind of like an add-on, right? Where in Star Trek, everything you had to do, use some kind of technology on the bridge or in engineering or the transporter room or the medical bay or, whatever. It was always another piece of technology, right? Like the little tricorder to scan them when they're on the thing and say, hey, I heard that they're actually working on the equivalent of a tricorder for EMTs.
Interesting.
Can't wait to see it.
I can already see the chat board for this video with the debate between Star Wars and Star Trek. No,
No, Star Trek's going to win that one. Barely will.
That's funny. All right, so do you think that science fiction is better at predicting technology or shaping what technologists are trying to build?
And the chicken and egg.
Yeah, it really is. One of the things that I learned later on is that Gene Roddenberry actually went to various NASA people and other to learn about technologies that they were working on to try and fit them into his series, right? So he kind of did it the one way where, hey, tell me what you're really working on, and I'll try and find a way of making it work in reality in the show, right? Where I think other people today, they're so out there and so creative that they can come up with these really wild and bizarre thing, and then we can use CGI and put it in a movie, right? And so now someone goes, that would be cool. Hey, I can develop that. And just like there's that guy, he's got a YouTube channel where he's trying to develop his own Iron Man suit, right?
That's nuts.
And he's got pieces that assemble and little things that come out of his palms, and it's nothing like what is in the movie, but yet he's working towards it, right? So he saw that. That's cool. I'm gonna go invent that.
Is that Hacksmith? Are you talking about Hacksmith, or is that a completely different channel?
I'm not familiar with Hacksmith, but
Okay.
it's just that every now and then something pops up, and I don't pay a lot of attention because it's one thing. But the other thing is that since we saw lightsabers in Star Wars, there's been constantly people trying to develop those, right?
It's true.
And there's that one that it's got a cable on it right now, but they got it cutting through metal, right?
It's wild.
So yeah, it's a little bit of both, right?
I should have known that the rapid questions weren't going to be rapid. Is there?
One day we will no longer have pocket knives. We will have lightsabers that we will be using to open our candy and cut our apples with.
Yeah, little mini lightsabers. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, but you still won't be able to take those on the airline.
You won't need an airline if we're all be using flying car.
I have to leave my shampoo and my lightsaber in my baggage under the plane, unfortunately.
Put them out of the carry-on, the check bag. Well, Dad, thanks again. Appreciate you hopping on. That is a wrap of today's episode of Java Jargon, powered by Avalon Technologies. A special thanks to you, our guest, for sharing your insights, curiosity, and excitement through all the emerging technologies and where the technology and science industries are headed. Of course, big thanks to Todd Johnson and Jonie Chen for helping drive such a thoughtful and engaging conversation. Really appreciate you guys. If you guys enjoyed this podcast and this conversation, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this podcast with your network. You can find more episodes on our website at www.avalontech.net or on YouTube by searching for Java Jargon, powered by Avalon Technologies. Java Jargon is powered by Avalon Technologies, and we'll be back here with more conversations to cut through the noise, and what we get really matters in tech. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks again, John. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Right now.
Bye.